All right, everyone, I am back here to review the Glock 23. It's a Gen 3. Before I get started with that, I just wanted to touch on a couple things real quick. So, first of all, um, for those of you that watched my Phoenix Arms review, part one, I did put out a part two to kind of go over one thing that I missed. And I don't know if you noticed, the gun started to jam a little bit, and I fixed that and showed that in the video. For some reason, YouTube is not letting me title it. It just every time I try to put the title Phoenix Arms, so and so and so forth, part two, it just says that there's an error and it goes back to untitled. I can't put a description or anything. So if you want to, those things I missed in the first video, you can go into my channel and look for the untitled video and see that information there. The second thing is, I realize I'm really boring to listen to, and I am sorry. Before I started these videos, I was not ever really good at talking in public, talking to a large crowd of people, and this is kind of what it feels like. It's talking hopefully to a larger and larger audience as time goes by, and I apologize for that. So, I mean, this should be fun, right? I'm an enthusiast. I'm a firearms enthusiast, so this should be fun for me. And I just kind of sound drony and robotic trying to give the information, which I think I'm starting to give better information as I do these reviews. But I need to kind of not sound so boring. So bear with me. I'm going to do my best, and also I'm going to do my best to kind of run through these topics a little quicker now, so it doesn't take almost 40 minutes like it did in the last video. And I figured, which better one than the Glock. The Glock is a simple but yet very functional tool. There are many videos out there already, so there's a lot of information out there. I think I'm going to touch on a couple things that are not out there, specifically with the measurements of the trigger guard and the frame, like I usually do, for reference for your hand size and so on and so forth. So let's just jump right into it. All right. So first of all, we're going to do the weights like we did the last time, and let's take the snap cap out. All right, get this over to the side. So as you see, snap cap, there's nothing in the chamber, no magazine. All right, unloaded. I'm not going to pull the trigger yet. I'll do that when we disassemble it, but unloaded. Well, just for those that want to know, unloaded without the magazine, 21.87 ounces. Unloaded with the magazine, 24.34 ounces. Now, because of New York City laws, and by the way, anybody, I meant it in my first couple of videos, anybody that needs help here in the New York City area, know anybody in New York City that and are thinking of getting your permit for your firearm, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to help. There's a lot of misconceptions. Some people believe that in New York City you're not even allowed to own a firearm, which is not true at all. So if you know anybody that lives in New York City, or if you live in New York City and you need some help, I will be glad to give any guidance that I can. Just hit me up in the comments and we'll take it from there. So because, as I was speaking before, New York City only allows 10 rounds in the magazine. Seven rounds in a 10-round magazine. This has 10-round capacity, but only 7 rounds. As you can see in the, I don't know if you could see that well. Let's see if I can focus. In the indicator, it shows 7 rounds, but no 8th round. So, for those of you in New York City, we'll take the measurement if it would be fully loaded. 7 rounds. Let me focus back. Sorry about that. Here we go. 7 rounds without one in the chamber, 27.41 ounces. 7 rounds with one in the chamber, which is 8th round, 27.87 ounces. If you were to load it at the 10-round capacity, represented by the 3 more rounds, it's 29.17 ounces. And normal magazine in a state that allows capacity higher than 10-round magazines, this this compact Glock 23 would normally hold 15 rounds. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 rounds at 31.36 ounces. All right, I think we have the weights covered there. Let's move all this off to the side. And let me get the magazine. All right, here we go. So we're gonna go into the measurements. Let me get my rulers. I had them right here. Here we go. So we're gonna do an overall length of, well, if you look at it from two perspectives, from the barrel to this beaver tail, you're looking at right around 7 inches, just over 7 inches. If you go down from, let me move this over a little bit so you can see it, from the barrel to the bottom of the grip, you're at 7¼ inches. For those of you that want to know the specifics, that's where we're at. Now, let's go into the grip length. So we're looking at 2½ inches. The measurement from the trigger to the guard, the inside of the trigger guard, we're looking at right around 1 inch, and also right around 1 inch here. All right, let's keep this going. The width is, sorry, let me turn this around. At the widest point, we're talking about 1 1/8 inches. I don't know if you could see that, but we're talking about 1 1/8 inches there. All right. And the barrel. Let me disassemble this. Let me put my snap tap in. I'm sorry about that. I really don't dry fire these. I know it sound very repetitive, but let's take this barrel out. All right, there we go. Much easier than the Phoenix Orange ones, right? For those of you that watched that video. All right, so we are looking at about 3 3/4 inches. Sorry, 3 3/4 inches. All right, that's the barrel length. Let's put this back together real quick. I'll when I field strip it at the end of the video, again, I'll do it a little slower for those of you that are new, so you can kind of see how it's done. All right, function. So this is what's considered striker fire, which is a little different from single action. There are videos out there going into the specifics of how it makes it different, but from what I understand, this is not considered single action. This is striker fire. Maybe I'll do a video on that too. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that, and I'll go into that. But there's no exposed hammer, as you can see. It's doesn't really have a hammer. Like I said, it's striker fire. That kind of talks more to that. So yeah, we'll talk about that in maybe another video. It does have 3 safeties. It's not an external safety. There are 3 internal safeties. One here is this tongue and groove. If you notice right here, the only way that you're able to pull the trigger all the way back to fire the gun is if you actually depress this tongue, which, if you could see in the back here, it's the only way that it'll allow the trigger to go back. So when this tongue is depressed, then you could pull the trigger back all the way and fire it. So there's the first safety, the trigger safety. Then you have a fire pin block safety, which, unless the trigger is pulled back, it doesn't allow the plunger that holds the firing pin in place, or back I should say, or blocks it from being depressed forward and firing the round. And you also have a drop safety that's also tied into the firing pin. So if you want to see a video on that, that'll be a lot quicker. I could show you the 3 components and a little more in depth, and you could see what the 3 safeties are. But there are 3 safeties, but like I always say, your best safety is your finger, all right, and your common sense, all right? So 3 safeties. Internal safety, but they have safeties. The magazine is drop free, as you can see. Drops right out, no problem. and this is unloaded. So if you ever had a dumper mag loaded, there's more weight to it. It'll drop free just the same. Okay. The slide is a bit heavy to pull. Not the worst, and these serrations are pretty decent and make it a little easier, but it is a bit heavy to pull. You'll get used to it though, not a big deal. All right. So touching into the round in the chamber indicator, there isn't. So if you were to look closer, here's the extractor, kind of like the PX4 Storm that I have, that I showed you on the Phoenix Arms review. So the extractor is external, and when there's no round in the chamber, it doesn't protrude out. It's flush with the firearm. Here, snap cap, not live ammo. When you load a round in the chamber, this protrudes out a bit. So you can kind of tell with that, but it doesn't protrude much. You have to really be looking. It's not very obvious. So, but there is something there that you can feel and somewhat see where it actually does indicate if there's a round in the chamber. All right, let's move right along. I'm sorry, just trying to go by my notes real quick. So we do have a, and as you know, the more I do this, the more I'll, remember these notes and won't have to keep referring back to them. As you can see here, I got a few notes there that I'm working off on to try to cover everything, but I'll try to memorize them. This way it's kind of more fluent instead of having to refer back to them. And thank you for your patience, guys, and your support. I really appreciate it. So yes, this does have a Picatinny rail right there, so you can mount a lighter laser on there. And it is a last round. It does have a last round hold open, where the slide stays back when the last round is fired, which makes it a lot easier to load a new magazine in there. You just press the slide release, and it'll feed another round into the chamber. So now let's go over the textures on this firearm, which really, it has a lot of them, but they're not that good. They really aren't. So we have grip textures all the way around. Actually, we have here in the back, we have sort of these squares cut out into the grip, and then these grooves here. Here, there's more of a texturing here, like a rough texture, kind of like sandpaper. Doesn't feel anything like sandpaper. It's actually pretty smooth, but here we have more of those squares cut out here, and the front of the trigger guard does have squares also. But again, it's really smooth. You really don't feel them. I guess maybe with gloves, if you have like a cloth or whatever glove material you have on there, maybe it'll dig into there more. But it's pretty smooth. You really don't feel it. Apparently, from what I understand, the Gen 4 texture is a lot better and kind of takes care of this problem. This is chambered in 40, so it is a little snappy, but has a full-size grip. So you don't really need. For some guys, for me, I just kind of shoot at the range, and if I ever needed it for home defense. Some people, the military, the police, they kind of have to rely on it, on holstering it, make sure they have a good purchase on it. So that's definitely significant points to point out for people in those situations. But for me, you don't, and for your person who is just going to take this to the range, it's not really a big issue whatsoever. To rack the slide back, these serrations are milled into the slide, and they are pretty deep. These, I will say, do help a bit more than these with racking the slide back. It doesn't have any in the front here, as you can see, just in the rear, but these do help. So there we go for the textures on the firearm. This firearm in particular is what they call a polymer. It feels like plastic, but it's not plastic. It's called polymer, poly for short, and it's supposed to be a lot stronger than steel, but also a lot lighter. So you already saw the weights earlier. Can you imagine if this was all steel? It would be a lot heavier. but the slide is still up here. So there's that. We kind of touched on the magazine capacity a little bit at the beginning of the video, so I won't go much through that, but typically in other states where there's no restrictions on magazines capacity, this compact size, because you have a full size and a subcompact, but the compact size would come with I believe, I'm sorry, I made a mistake earlier and I don't want to edit it out, but it comes 13 with the full sized, 13 with the compact, 15 with the full size. So these magazines in those other states would come with 13 round magazines. A full size would be 15 rounds. I was thinking of the Glock 17 with 9mm, or this with 9mm that would hold 15 in the compact. So it would be 13 elsewhere. Here it's 10 because I'm in communist New York City. So there's that. So the sights, they are dovetailed in, so you can push them over for windage. Nothing really for elevation. There's nothing to raise them or lower them, but you can push them in for windage. And the front post is kind of screwed in there. You can remove that. A lot of people don't like these sights because they're plastic, and you know, I've heard stories of them breaking off. But yeah, so people usually like go to like a Trigicon site or something like that. But for daytime shooting, I mean, the effectiveness of the sight itself, you know, they're pretty good for full size for what it comes with. But like I said, a lot of people switch them out for steel metal sights there. So now let's get to the field stripping of this. Kind of did a little quickly earlier, which shows how easy it is to field strip, but I'll explain it for those who are new. You have to press the trigger. So I'm going to load my snap cap again. I know I sound very redundant. I apologize, but I really don't. Anyway, all right, let's keep going. So snap cap loaded. We're going to pull the trigger. Now once the trigger is pulled, you have to do what's called a press check, slight press check. You really just have to come back just a bit. That's it. That's as far as you need to come back. Then you take these the takedown levers. There's one. Let me let that go. There's one on each side. So with 2 fingers here, you grab them as you're doing your slight press check. Pull them down, and the slide will come forward. That's really it. Really it. Now you have your guide rod and spring. So they're not separate, they're captured. So you just remove that, and then you bring the barrel up a little, tilt it forward some, and come out. And there's a snap cap right there, which I will remove. And that is it. A basic field strip. This is not a full disassemble of the firearm. This is just a basic field strip for basic cleaning. There are a lot or more internal parts in there that I won't go into, but there's you know, there are people, yeah, and you should from time to time, maybe not every single time you fire, but from time to time take it down for a full cleaning, because you will get grit and dirt in there after a while. So let's okay, let's put this back together, which will be in reverse. Take the slide, the barrel, make sure that the barrel is seated down all the way. Then you'll take the guide rod. You can't really mess this up. You have one side here that has the screw and this plate in the back. The plate in the back will go into this, there's like a half circle cutout, and that's where this plate will sit in. So what you will do is you will take the front of the guide rod in. You're gonna have to press it in some just so that it can get down into that groove. And there. Guys, I know it's a little dark from some angles, so I have to kind of bring it towards the light. I am looking to invest in some spotlighting where I can kind of get some lighting from above shining down, so when I show these internals, there's a lot more light on them and you could see the parts better. So like I said, I am in this for the long haul. I am growing as I make these videos, buying more equipment, and thank you very much for joining me on this journey. So all right, I'm sorry, let me get back to this here. So with the slide assembled, you have to make sure there's 4 sets of, well, not 4 sets, there's 4 rails, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have the cutouts for the rail that start at the very end. So you have to make sure you line up those rails correctly. And before I actually go in all the way, you'll see 2 cutouts, one here, and one here. That's actually for this part of the trigger bar that protrudes up for it to clear it, and the round ejector, I'm sorry, the round ejector, it's to clear that. So once we start going through, you'll clear one, then you'll clear the other. You got to make sure you come back all the way, let it come forward, and I won't say it again, you guys are getting tired of me saying it. Let me just load it up real quick. This way you can test the function, make sure that the trigger and everything seems like it's functioning correctly. The hold open is working properly, last round hold open, and we're good to go. Alrighty, so that is it. Well, almost it, I'm sorry. There is a couple of modifications that I've made to this gun. Simple, not very simple to install, and it actually does make a difference. Before I did, I was like, it's probably not a big deal, but I do see a big difference, so I'll go through them really quickly. The first one is the mag release. It protrudes out a little more, which is a lot better for releasing the magazine. The other one was fine, but it didn't protrude out as much. Now some people might not like this because they say that it might have a potential to snag, when you're pulling from a holster. Unfortunately, I don't have that issue in New York City here. I can't carry, so for me it wasn't a big deal, but for some people that might be something to consider. It might be a deal breaker, so there is that. The other thing is, on the slide stop, there is this nub now, where normally at the front of it you see it's just a flat plate here. It would normally be flat all the way back, but this has this bump that protrudes out some, not much, but you know what, it makes a big difference in getting that slide to come home. It really does. The other one, I was able to, but this one, it's like, so for that little bit more that protrudes makes such a big difference. I definitely recommend this. I don't see this being a snag issue at all whatsoever. This I can see, this not so much. And if heaven forbid you're ever in that situation where you have to fire your firearm and reload quickly, you definitely, your fine motor skills are going to go out the window. So you want that extra little advantage where you can dump a mag, reload, and send that slide home quickly without even thinking about it. And the third out of the fourth upgrade I've made are the extended takedown levers. Now it doesn't extend much. It doesn't even protrude. If you see here, let me try to get it in the angle. You see here, it kind of comes down. You have the frame, and then it kind of slopes down. Well, it doesn't even really protrude out from there much. I mean, very slightly. This wouldn't be considered like something that would snag on anything at all whatsoever, but it comes far enough that before that, if your hands were sweaty, you're wearing gloves, to take this down was a little bit of a pain in the neck. Not the worst, I don't want to exaggerate, but this just makes it a lot easier. And these parts are very cheap. Lone Wolf, go to Glock themselves. These I got from Lone Wolf. And they were a few bucks each. Not expensive whatsoever, and it does make a big difference. And the last one, I'll take it apart again for you real quick. This was the Phoenix Arms. I'd be not showing you this because I wouldn't want to take that part again. But the guide rod itself, I mean, it comes all in one unit. I didn't have to remove the spring from the polymer guide rod and put it on this one, but the stock, I guess you would say, guide rod is polymer. And even though, like I said before, it's stronger than steel, it's a very thin plastic piece. And I have heard one or two stories of them snapping. I mean, after a lot of rounds, and I unfortunately don't get to shoot that often, so I didn't foresee that happening. But this was a very inexpensive upgrade, and I believe there's some tungsten or titanium ones out there that are heavier than this steel one. This is just a steel one that adds some weight to the front to reduce muzzle flip. So I did it more for the reliability, so that I don't have one snap on me. A steel guide rod, this is gonna last forever. This is gonna last the gun probably, but yeah. So, and again, very inexpensive. All right. So, guys and gals, that is it. A review of the Glock 23 Gen 3 chambered in .40 caliber. If you have any questions, comments, you want me to go in more into depth into some of the issues I talked about, like the internal safeties, things like that, please let me know. Please go see my first video on all the firearms I own. I'm going to be picking one of those next, probably another handgun to review. So if you have one in particular that you'd like me to review, let me know. If not, I might be leaning more towards reviewing the M&P Shield chambered in 9mm, the first gen, not the 2.0 that came out recently. But yeah, so I'll probably be doing that. If there's another one that you'd like me to review first, let me know. I'll be happy to do that one first. If not, you'll probably be seeing the M&P Shield next. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Thanks for watching.